Welcome to the Top 10 of 10. Today is May the 21st, 2014. I'm your host, Dan Reid, writer at OurHD.tv, and these are the top stories today. Story number one from Politico, 2014 primary election results. Establishment self-funders win big in primaries. Tuesday night was great for incumbents. The GOP establishment and self-funders, it was not so great a night to be a Clinton-in-law. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell defeated his GOP challenger in Kentucky by 25 percentage points. A high-profile but low-suspense race when voters cast ballots in 6 states. In Georgia, Senate Republican primary headed to a runoff. And in Oregon, pediatric neurosurgeon Monica Webby fended off a more conservative challenger in her Republican primary. Pennsylvania Democrats, meanwhile, picked businessman Tom Wolf, who poured $10 million of his own money into the race, as their nominee against Governor Tom Corbett, one of the most vulnerable Republicans in the country. Also in the Keystone State, Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law, Marjorie Margolis, lost a bid to reclaim her old House seat despite some assistance from Bill and Hillary Clinton. After a year of threats from conservative outside groups, no GOP incumbents lost Tuesday. Idaho Representative Mike Simpson beat back a Tea Partier supported by groups such as Club for Growth, with the help of the business lobby and Mitt Romney. The McConnell victory, called immediately after polls closed, as a blow to conservative outside groups that spent more than $1 million supporting his opponent, Matt Bevin. So basically, seemed like a good night for establishment Republicans, establishment Democrats, and I guess people who funded their own campaign. Story number 9 from Gallup. Same-sex marriage support reaches new high at 55%. Nearly 8 in 10 young adults favor gay marriage. American support for the law recognizing same-sex marriage as legally valid has increased yet again. Now at 55%, marriage equality advocates have had a string of legal successes over the past year, most recently this week in Pennsylvania and Oregon, where federal judges struck down bans on gay marriage. 2 successive Gallup polls in 2012 saw support climb from 53 to 54%, indicating a steady but slight growth in acceptance of gay marriage over the past year after a more rapid increase between 2009 and 2011. In the latest May 8 to 11 poll, there is further evidence that support for gay marriage has solidified above the majority level. So gay marriage definitely entering the mainstream, now a majority position. So some of the breakdown. So young people in particular, the older you go up the scale here, so 18 to 29, it's 70% should be legal, 30 to 49, 53, 50 to 64, 46, 65 and up, 41. So apparently the best indication is your age. So particularly younger people are completely okay with it, and older people have reservations. Even 41% isn't that bad among 65 and up. Not that, of course, there's people will eventually pass on, so the issue seems pretty much won. But we'll see. There's still a few states left that do not recognize, although they may have civil union provisions. Story number 8. This is from the LA Times. Federal funds earmarked to offset Affordable Care Act insurer losses. So there's apparently some protection here for the insurance companies. The Obama administration has quietly adjusted key provisions of its signature healthcare law to potentially make billions of additional taxpayer dollars available to the insurance industry. The companies providing coverage to the Affordable Care Act lose money. This kind of goes to Chris's Hedges point that this was an insurance industry bailout. The move was buried in hundreds of pages of new regulations issued late last week. It comes as part of an intensive administrative effort to hold down premium increases for next year, a top priority for the White House, as the rates will be announced ahead of this fall's congressional elections. administration officials for a month have denied charges by opponents that they plan a bailout for insurance companies providing coverage under the healthcare law. They continue to argue that most insurers shouldn't need to substantially increase premiums because safeguards in the healthcare law will protect them. Okay, they continue to argue that most insurance. Okay, but the change in regulations essentially provides insurers with another backup. If they keep rate increases modest over the next couple of years but lose money, the administration will tap federal funds as needed to cover shortfalls. Although little noticed so far, the plan was already beginning to fuel a new round of attacks Tuesday from healthcare law critics. I'd imagine so. Story number 7. Harry Reid optimistic on David Barone, or Barron. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid signaled Tuesday that a controversial judicial nominee from the Obama administration is likely to win eventual confirmation from the Senate. The nominee, David Barone, has drawn some criticism and scrutiny for his role in drafting a legal memo as a Justice Department official on the 2011 drone strike that killed Anwar al-Awlaki. But Reid said Tuesday that I think he will be okay on the vote to break a filibuster on the Barone nomination, slated for Wednesday. There were just some misunderstandings, Reid said Tuesday. Once everything was explained, I don't know if anybody, but certainly most everyone in our caucus is satisfied. Senate Democrats concerned about the Barone nomination were briefed by White House officials during a classified session last week at the Capitol. But the most vocal criticisms come from Senator Rand Paul, who announced last week that he would filibuster the nomination after reading the classified memos written by Barone. Those documents, Paul argued, gave no legal rationale for the strikes that killed al-Awlaki, a U.S. citizen without trial or legal representation. Potential 2016 presidential contender added that there is no valid legal precedent to justify the killing of an American citizen not engaged in combat. So that's the Democrats, of course, are going along because they're spineless and they have no principles. What else is new? Story number 6. Amid scandal, embattled VA chief visits capitals from the Hill. Embattled Veterans Affairs Secretary Eric Shinseki and Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel on Tuesday visited the leaders of the House Appropriations Committee. The meeting with House Appropriations Chairman Hal Rogers and Ranking Member Nita Lowey was on the compatibility of Pentagon and Veterans Affairs medical records, and not the controversy over waiting lists at VA hospitals and clinics, according to Jennifer Hing, Communications Director for the panel. The visit comes as Shinseki faces a growing number of calls to resign. The VA Inspector General is investigating allegations that hospitals kept secret wait lists to cover up how long veterans were waiting to receive treatment. It was not clear if Shinseki or Hagel met with members of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. The head of that panel, Representative Jeff Miller, has been a harsh critic of Shinseki. The secretaries did not visit with members of the House Armed Services Committee. Story number 5. U.S. to reveal justification for drone strikes against American citizens. The Justice Department will publicly release a secret 2011 memo that provided the legal justification for the killing of American terrorism suspects overseas, according to a U.S. official. The department had been weighing whether to appeal a court order to disclose the memo, but informed the White House on Tuesday that it would not. The official said the decision came on the eve of the Senate vote on President Obama's nomination of David J. Barone, the most transparent administration in history, one of the memo's authors. A group of liberal conservative senators had said that they would fight the nomination unless the memo was made public. The administration acknowledged last year that drones had killed 4 U.S. citizens in Yemen, including cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, who was targeted by a CIA drone strike in September 2011. Obama called al-Awlaki the head of foreign operations for al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. A federal court ruled this year that the CIA, the Defense Department, and the Justice Department did not have to respond to Freedom of Information Act requests for documents related to drone killings in general, and more specifically, the targeting of U.S. citizens. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Court overturned that decision April 21st. The government had 45 days in which to ask the appeals panel to review the case anew. So, looks like this might finally get out anyway. Pretty disgusting. killing U.S. citizens without any due process. Open change. Story number 4 from Gizmodo. The FBI is struggling to hire hackers who don't smoke weed. The FBI has a problem. The agency needs to hire hackers to build out its cybercrime division, but it also will not hire anyone who smoked weed in the past 3 years. And guess what? A lot of hackers like to smoke weed. It's a real conundrum. However, it's a conundrum the FBI is working through. On Monday, the same day the agency made headlines by issuing wanted posters for Chinese army hackers, FBI Director James Comey told an audience at the White Collar Crime Institute about this little pod problem. I have to hire a great workforce to compete with these cyber criminals. And some of those kids want to smoke weed on the way to the interview. Comey said exactly how to do that is the hard part. Comey added the agency is grappling with the question right now. Well, there you go. Good luck. Story number 3. Secrets, lies, and Snowden's email. Why I was forced to shut down LavaBit. This is from The Guardian. Ladar Levison. For the first time, the founder of an encrypted email startup that was supposed to ensure privacy for all reveals how the FBI and the U.S. legal system made sure we don't have rights to much privacy in the first place. My company LavaBit provided email services to 410,000 people, including Edward Snowden, according to news reports, and thrived by offering features specifically designed to protect the privacy and security of its customers. I had no choice but to consent to the installation of their device, which would hand the U.S. government access to all of their messages to and from my customers as they travel between their email accounts. But that wasn't enough. The federal agents then claimed that their court order required me to surrender my company's private encryption keys, and I balked. When they said they needed, what they said they needed were customer passwords, which were sent securely so that they could access the plain text versions of messages from customers using my company's encrypted storage feature. Bothered by what the agents were saying, I informed them that I would first need to read the order they had just delivered and then consult with an attorney. The Fed seemed surprised by my hesitation. What ensued was a flurry of legal proceedings that would last 38 days, ending not only my startup but also destroying bit by bit the very principle on which it was founded, that we have a right to personal privacy. In the first 2 weeks, I was served legal papers a total of 7 times and was in contact with the FBI every other day. That was the period a prosecutor later characterized as my period of silence. It took a week for me to identify an attorney who would adequately represent me, given the complex technological and legal issues. So 2 days later, I was served with the first subpoena for the encryption keys. With such short notice, my first attorney was unable to appear alongside me in court because the whole case was under seal. I couldn't even admit to anyone who wasn't an attorney that I needed a lawyer. Jesus. In Virginia, the government replaced its encryption key subpoena with a search warrant and a new court date. Then a federal judge entered an order of contempt against me without even so much as a hearing, but the judge created a loophole. Without a hearing, I was never given the opportunity to object, let alone make any substantive defense to the contempt charge. My God. In the meantime, I had a hard decision to make. I had not devoted 10 years of my life to building LavaBit, only to become complicit in a plan which I felt would have involved a wholesale violation of my customers' rights to privacy. Thus, with no alternative decision was obvious, I had to shut down my company. Great. This is really a great job creation strategy here by the Obama administration. Story number 2. From Al Jazeera. Russia-China signed deal to bypass U.S. dollar. In a symbolic blow to U.S. global financial hegemony, Russia and China took a small step towards undercutting the domination of the U.S. dollar as the international reserve currency on Tuesday, when Russia's second biggest financial institution, VTB, signed a deal with the Bank of China to bypass the dollar and pay each other in domestic currencies. The so-called Agreement on Cooperation, signed in the presence of Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was on a visit to Shanghai, could be followed by a long-awaited announcement this week of a massive natural gas deal. Actually, did that happen? Our countries have done a huge job to reach a new historic landmark. Demand for the dollar, which has long served as a safe and reliable reserve currency in international transactions, has allowed the U.S. to borrow almost unlimited cash and spend well beyond its means, which, with some economists, say has afforded the United States an outsized influence on world affairs. Duh. But the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, a block of the world's five major emerging economies, have long sought to diminish their dependence on the dollar as a means of reshaping the world financial and geopolitical order. In the absence of a viable alternative, however, replacing it has proven difficult. So they're making some small steps to do that, which leads into the number one story between Russia and China. Russia and China complete $400 billion energy deal. There seems to be an unfortunate pattern in U.S. foreign policy. The U.S. overreaches, face plants, and China somehow ends up the true winner. In Iraq, China buys nearly half of the oil produced and is considered the biggest beneficiary of the post-Saddam oil boom. In Afghanistan, China has secured lucrative mineral contracts despite having shed no blood and not much aid. And now the Ukraine crisis, fomented by the U.S., unwittingly offered China another opportunity to profit. Russia and China announced that after 10 years of negotiations, they were completing a $400 billion energy deal. It seemed that with the instability and uncertainty in Ukraine, the Russians were highly incentivized to get a deal done. China wins again. China has secured itself a solid supply of natural gas for 30 years under favorable terms, thanks in part to U.S.-induced chaos in Ukraine, which undoubtedly contributed to Russia's urgency to finish the deal. Russia secures a new market and China gets a better deal thanks to another U.S. foreign policy faceplant. Perhaps it's time to revisit a more humble foreign policy, or at least one that does not continually weaken the U.S. while empowering China. Food for thought. You can stop screwing up and giving China a free ride, but you never know. And that was the top 10 of 10. If you have a story you'd like me to feature in the top 10 of 10, please tweet me at Dan S. Wright. Be sure to read all the stories at FireDogLake.com. Thanks for watching. See you later.